God help us, we're surrounded. They set the trap. We walked straight into it. They knew we were coming. The prayer crackled through Riley Hale's earpiece as she pressed herself flat against the jagged limestone of Skycliff Ridge, 90 meters below. 22 Navy SEALs moved straight into a kill zone carved into the Kargul Valley, an ambush she had warned about. Now unfolding in real time. 12 hours earlier. Inside Fob Raven's Edge, Captain Daniel Voss had waved off her terrain analysis as paranoia. Signals show sparse traffic. He'd insisted. No heavy presence. But now his voice was shrill on the net, begging for air support that wouldn't arrive for 17 long minutes. Riley checked her M2010 enhanced sniper rifle. Chambered in 300 Win mag, 60 rounds, 17 minutes. That was all she had to hold back an enemy force at least 40 strong. Her ghillie suit blended with the stone, every fiber wired to patience. At 32, she was the lone Army sniper attached to Task Force Trident, handpicked for her mountain warfare experience. The mission, an intelligence-driven SEAL raid, had gone catastrophically wrong. Whether you're watching from Texas, Ohio, or anywhere our warriors call home, remember to subscribe to Stories That Salute. Stories like these, sacrifices like these, deserve to be remembered. The morning sun had not yet touched her ridge. Good. No heat shimmer to bend her shots. Through her Schmidt and Bender PM2 scope. She tracked the SEAL's tactical wedge tightening in the valley floor. They thought it was a formation. She knew better. 6 machine gun nests lay hidden in the rocks, their arcs overlapping like scissor blades. Her breathing slowed to 4 per minute. A skill her father, Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Hale, had drilled into her in the thin air of Colorado's 10,000-foot peaks. He taught her the mountains never forgive mistakes. Neither does war. Below, shadows shifted. Figures in mismatched camo moved into firing positions, oblivious to the death watching from above. Riley's finger brushed the trigger. The first shot would decide everything. They called it Kargul Valley for the maps. But to Riley, it had the smell of old blood and dry rock. She'd studied that valley for 3 weeks, drawing invisible lines on satellite overlays, walking routes in her head, memorizing where shepherds skirted the cliffs and where fresh boot tracks cut through scree. That was the work that made a mountain tell its secrets. It was also the work that earned her the scorn of men who trusted radios more than rock. By 15, she could put 5 rounds through a dime at 300 meters. By 18, she was a national competitor in high-power rifle. The Army turned a fast lane into sniper school at Fort Benning and never looked back. She was one of 3 women to ever finish the course, and the only one to top her class. That pedigree made Task Force Trident call her name when the mission needed someone who understood how mountains bite. Her spotter Marcus Doc Moreno hadn't been there. 3 days ago an IED had taken him on a resupply run. No replacement had arrived. No chatter on the net suggested a team would come up the ridge to trade Overwatch. It was a hole you learned to live with. Or you died. Inside Fob Raven's Edge, Captain Daniel Voss had stood behind a battered Plex map and presented a tidy picture sparse signals. Scattered fighters. Maybe a dozen at most. "We have SIGINT," he said. "We have drones. Commander Cole Rivers backed him relationships built on prior deployments. Trust purchased in the same coin." Riley had stood, and the room had turned its polite, condescending silence toward her. "Sir, I've identified at least 6 fortified positions along the eastern ridge," she said. "Conservative estimate, 40 fighters." She'd watched the way the valleys funneled movement, how certain gullies invited ambush, how camouflage had the same rhythm as the stone. She explained the L-shaped approach. how a moving column would be funneled like cattle into a scissoring kill arc. Voss smiled the smile of a man who read maps instead of mountains. Signals don't lie. Sergeant, if there were 40, we'd see chatter. Rivers echoed the line about drones and satellites. They had the data he said they did. She had the mountain. Then Doc died. A week of paperwork, a headstone, a gloved hand on a radio, and the realization that discretion had become necessity. The SEALs were going in whether she was sitting on a ridge or not. When the plan changed. It was too late to walk back the arrogance. Riley pulled her ghillie tighter and checked her Schmidt and Bender. The M2010 lay cold in her lap. 300 Win mag ready, 60 rounds slotted beside her. Below. The SEALs filed into the valley in the formation the intel had labeled tactical. To a team leader, it looked practiced. To a sniper who read land, it looked predictably wrong. She watched them move into the natural funnel. She watched the eastern ridge where her notes had circled every likely blind. Her finger found the first settling of the trigger then, from the rock line she'd marked 3 weeks ago. A shadow detached, and the barrel of a PKM found its throat. Something exploded 300 meters downrange. The valley answered with a sound as old as war. The valley had no mercy. The moment the first RPG screamed across the gorge, Riley Hale felt the ground convulse beneath her chest. The detonation tore a crater where the SEAL point man had been crouched seconds earlier. Dust geysered, echoes clawing along the ridgelines. Gunfire followed. PKMs thundered in overlapping arcs, tracers clawing through the kill zone. The SEAL wedge splintered, men diving for what little cover the valley floor offered. Commander Cole Rivers barked orders through the storm, his words nearly drowned by the metallic roar. Beside him, Captain Daniel Voss was shrieking into a dead radio, begging for fast movers still 17 minutes out. Riley pressed deeper into the limestone hide. The M2010's stock welded into her shoulder, her cheek sealed to the comb. She steadied her breath 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out the rhythm her father had carved into her bones on the Colorado ranges. Crosshairs settled. North saddle. 500 meters of PKM crew. Gunner hunched over his belt. Assistant feeding rounds. Riley dialed 3.5 mils. 1 mil for wind. Squeeze. The gunner folded. A red mist against rock. Cycle. Squeeze again. The assistant collapsed across the tripod before their bodies hit dirt. Riley's third shot was already hunting. The valley geometry became her ally sun at her back. Stone swallowing sound. To the fighters below, death was invisible. She shifted angles, dropping 2 men sprinting low between boulders, another trying to redeploy a PKM along the southern rise. 6 confirmed. But ammunition was a cruel accountant. She had come with 60 rounds, 20 already gone. Every pull of the trigger spent blood she might not have later. She forced herself to ration kill only what mattered most. Then she caught them disciplined shadows climbing her flank. Not panicked rabble, trained fighters moving in silence, scaling the limestone with purpose, flankers, wolves hunting the sniper. Her glass caught a muzzle glint, another rifleman above, 400 meters, enemy sniper. The duel had found her. Her round snapped first. Limestone chipped inches from her face as his bullet answered. Shards stung her cheek, hot and sharp. She exhaled. Pulse steady despite the storm. Valley or ridge save the SEALs below or guard her own 6. There was no time to choose both. The war narrowed to a single trigger pull. The world shrank to her scope's circle. Riley's shot cracked, erasing the rival sniper before he could realign. She rolled. Bolt cycling, eyes already swinging toward a second climber scaling at 420 meters. Squeeze! The body pitched backward into the void, rope whipping free. The rest of the team scattered across the slope. Momentum broken. Another RPG team crouched on the east bank. Fumbling with a reload, Riley cut them down before they could fire again, the gunner collapsing over his tube, the assistant clawing at nothing. Their deaths bought seconds. Seconds meant SEAL lives. She toggled comms, her voice flat gold lead. "This is Ghost. Multiple positions neutralized. You've got a window. Move!" Movement below was chaos, not progress. Through her scope, she caught a SEAL medic, frozen, pinned under a western gun line while a teammate bled out at his feet. Range 720 meters, beyond doctrine, but not beyond reach. Wind read 2.2 ms, gusting. Elevation 3.8 mils up. "Hold 2 mils, right?" Her father's words whispered from memory, not impossible. "Just work." She fired. Nearly a second of flight. Then the PKM gunner jerked backward, lifeless. The medic sprinted, tourniquet snapping tight. Blood flow stemmed. Riley allowed herself one breath of relief before scanning again. A raised hand in the enemy ranks caught her eye commander's signal. 10 fighters peeled off, moving in a coordinated wedge. Not retreat, hunt. They were coming for her ridge. Ammo check 38 rounds. Clock check 12 minutes until fast movers. Math with no kindness. Her hide was compromised. Staying meant being overrun. 80 meters upslope. A secondary hide waited a perch she'd carved days before. 80 meters of open exposure. 3 seconds across bare stone. Riley slid back from the scope, lungs tight. Bullets shredded limestone where her boots had been. She pressed flat. Then launched. The first sprint left her skinning elbows on jagged rock. A round hissed past, close enough to tear grit across her cheek. She rolled behind a ledge, chest heaving, stone biting her back. The flankers were closer, now measured bursts. Disciplined, not blind fire. They weren't spraying. They were hunting. She crawled again, pressing into stone, every movement timed to the rhythm of incoming fire. Dust plumed where bullets struck inches away, choking her lungs, stinging her eyes. She blinked clear, muscles screaming, and shoved forward by the time she slid into the secondary hide. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She slammed her last magazine into the M2010 chambered around and pressed cheek to glass. The valley was closing not just on the SEALs, but on her. The sound of rotors split the sky. 2 MH-60s knifed through the gorge, rotor wash whipping sand into a hurricane. Relief surged on the comms the cavalry had arrived. But below, SEALs were still pinned, wounded dragged through dust, gunfire clawing at their backs. Riley slid her final cartridge into the chamber. The metallic click was sharp. Final. 1 round. 1 choice. Through her glass, she caught 3 fighters breaking for her ridge. She squeezed the first, dropped. Bolt cycled on instinct. Second target fell mid-stride. The third froze when her last shot shattered stone beside his face. Enough hesitation. On the valley floor. SEALs staggered toward the helicopters, dragging their wounded. Rotor wash drowned the battlefield, sand thrashing in wild spirals. Riley's final shot had bought the seconds they needed. 1 by 1. The operators vanished into the belly of the Black Hawks. The last man was hauled aboard as engines roared, turbines screaming, then liftoff. Machines clawed skyward, carrying 22 souls out of the kill zone. Against the math, Riley had faced 40 hostiles, 6 fortified guns, multiple RPGs. The SEALs suffered 2 wounded, 0 dead. Victory, in the cruelest ledger of war. The after-action review was sober. Captain Voss stared at the floor, his arrogance hollow in hindsight. Commander Rivers read from the report Staff Sergeant Riley Hale engaged 14 confirmed targets between 350 and 720 meters. Her actions prevented catastrophic loss. No applause, just truth. Undeniable. Later. Riley broke down her rifle, piece by piece, wiping carbon from steel. Rivers approached quietly. How did you know where they'd hit us? She didn't look up. My father lived in mountains like these. He taught me terrain doesn't lie. Reports can be wrong. Satellites can miss. But the mountain always tells the truth if you know how to listen. Rivers hesitated. Why didn't you say, I told you so, back in the review? She slid the bolt home with a soft click. Because those 2 SEALs get to go home, that's all that matters. 3 months later, inside a hangar at Bagram, Riley received the Distinguished Service Cross. She asked the medal be mailed to Colorado, where her father lay too sick to travel. He would understand without a word. The lesson outlived the battle heroes don't fight for recognition. They fight so others can see another dawn, and in the silence of the mountains, truth will always speak louder than doubt.